everybody. Efren here of The Real Pastors. We are excited to be back and to be talking about this new venture that we have here, this new bit, if you will, or this new direction that we have going on. And we're very excited about it. This was a idea we had, over Christmas break of some new things we want to try with this channel. And but before we get started, we need to bring in, of course, the other half of Real Pastors.
Hey.
Sir Gary, how goes it, sir?
It goes well. It's a big day, Efren. It's a big day. I only bring out my blazer for big days. And our debut episode of Let Us Explain, I thought I'd bring out the blazer. So, when we decided to do this show, to join forces and talk about the movies world, immediately one of the things I thought about was the movies we're going to talk about today. It's like, I want to talk about these movies at some point on our show. So I'm excited about today. I am.
Good. Yes, I am also very excited because I just love doing stuff like this, because this is why we wanted to do this channel. Like, let's be honest, there are a lot of times with this channel we've mainly done movie news and some reviews and stuff. But I think you and I wanted to do this channel not only just to do those two things, but we wanted to do things like this, like talk about movies we love, explain them, if you will, and what will come eventually as well, how to fix certain things that we think could be way better. But yes, we are very excited, and so just want to do some catching up here, Gary. What have you watched last week? What have you done? And look at that, I capitalized. Well, we're not talking about the movie Up. I don't know why they both capitalized, but continue.
Nice. Catch up. I'm sad now because that movie makes me sad. Great movie though. Anyway, last weekend I was homesick, house to myself, as the family was on the road traveling. So I watched quite a bit, not as much as I wanted to, but I finally got around to watching Kong Skull Island.
Yes.
Thoroughly enjoyed that, getting ready for Kong versus Godzilla. So thoroughly enjoyed that movie. I also watched the new Denzel Washington movie on HBO Max. Pretty good. A little bit of language, not thick language, but pretty good. Everything, I had plans to watch more movies, but at some point I started rewatching The Last Dance on Blu-ray, of course, and that took up that plus the one or two wrestling documentaries I watched in my time homesick took up the rest of my viewing experience. So yeah, pretty solid weekend,
Good.
Yeah.
Good.
The Last Dance the second time around is even better.
Nice.
How about you?
I'm gonna have to do that second round of Last Dance soon, but I'm that guy that if I'm gonna watch it, I at least gotta have plans, whether it's a couple days or a whole day, just to watch them all, because I can't just watch a few and be done. But
Sunday afternoon I was on episode 9 and I was like, oh my gosh, I've just flown right through this.
Yeah.
I was a little bit concerned, but also proud.
Yeah, good. So. Yeah, I watched the Dark Knight. I did watch that last Thursday night. That's what I ended up watching, and still so good, so good. Such a great movie. It was funny because I told Katie, "Hey, I'm gonna go down. Yes, I'm gonna go down and watch a movie. Do you want to watch with me?" She's like, "Nah, I'm gonna watch her whatever reality shows that bore me." So she watched that instead, and then she came down. And then she was like, "Oh, well, I didn't know you were going to watch this movie." And I was like, "Well, I didn't watch it either. I just saw it." And he's like, "Oh, I would have watched this with you." But because that's probably her favorite comic book movie of all time, is The Dark Knight. But
likewise, Katie, likewise.
Yeah, so watched that and thoroughly enjoyed it, and hadn't really watched much else other than watching stuff with the kids. But no problem. And then this Friday night, I'll be taking the kids to see Tom and Jerry. So
cool.
I'm actually hoping, Gary, that maybe after that the girls will want to do a kid review, and we'll see their thoughts on it.
Yeah, very cool. Yeah, Tom and Jerry, that looks pretty funny.
Yes. Yes. So here we are. The reason why we are here, we are kicking off our very first Let Us Explain, and this is where Gary and we want to take, whether it's a movie or two movies, a sequel, I guess, movie sequel, either way, a trilogy, whatever it is, a franchise, and we want to explain why we feel it doesn't get the respect it deserves. These are the movies that are walking around like Rodney Dangerfield. I can't get no respect.
No respect. Hey.
Yes, exactly. And so that's what we want to do. We want to explain why these movies or why these series of movies are actually really, really good.
Yeah.
And we are excited because of this trilogy. Um, well, there's just so much to talk about it.
Mm-hmm.
But here is our trilogy that
Uh,
we are looking into. Is I'm just calling it the Unbreakable Trilogy. I
yep.
have heard the train, was it 1447? I forget the actual number of the train.
Oh, that's
Trilogy.
clever. Yeah.
So yeah, so some people have that, which I think is pretty cool because I'm like,
Yeah.
that makes a lot of sense too, actually.
Pretty much has it all together. You think
Yeah.
about it.
Yes.
Oh.
So Gary and I both have a huge love and fondness to start off with Unbreakable. So maybe what we're talking about is let's talk about each movie real fast individually, because between Unbreakable and Split was like 15 years,
It was a while. Yeah.
give or take. And so we're going to briefly talk about what the movies are, and then we'll go back and say why they deserve a little bit more.
We got Matthew in the chat saying I need to watch those, and that might bring me to. It's like if you want to sign off and watch them now, then come back. That's great because we're probably going to spoil. We have no choice but to spoil these.
Yeah, we have no choice.
We already have spoiled the second one. So sorry.
Yeah, we actually kind of have.
I guess we could have, but yeah, Matthew, we love you, man. But yeah, head out of here and go watch them. Come back.
Yes. Let's be honest though. The fact that they did the trailer for Glass spoiled Split. So
yes, it did. It did. Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
Before we get into this, please remember any of you guys out there watching. If you haven't subscribed yet, subscribe. Hit that button for us, please, the YouTube gods, and just follow along with us because again, we have great content. We feel is great content, and so we talk about. So let's do that. So Gary, I'd like to hear your thoughts first because I know when we bring up Unbreakable, you immediately have plenty to say, and you and I pretty much agree, but you wore the blazer, so sir, you need to go ahead and do it.
Right. So when The Sixth Sense came out, and I viewed that movie in the theater twice, even though it absolutely terrified me and still terrifies me to this day, I thought it was an amazing movie. And I was at the time where I was always considered myself a movie nerd, and I was one of the few people around in my world that knew who directed what. And when M. Night Shyamalan was making a second movie, I was like, I got to see this, even though it might freak me out just like The Sixth Sense. But all I needed to see was from the creator of The Sixth Sense, Unbreakable. So I went to the movie store on a weekend. That was the routine. My dad would pick me up, and he'd go to Food Line. I'd go to the movie store. I rented the VHS. I had to get Unbreakable was what I was getting. I knew it all day at school. Getting Unbreakable tonight. Going to see the new Bruce Willis, M. Night, Samuel L. Jackson. I had no idea what it was about. No clue. Didn't care. Wanted to watch it, and I sat just mesmerized by this movie the entire time. Absolutely loved it. Just it's creative. It is original. Samuel L. Jackson, Bruce Willis. This is back when Bruce Willis actually cared about the movies he was making, and and it's beautifully directed. It is an absolute. I feel it's a masterpiece. It is one of my favorite movies of all time, and when I started a Blu-ray collection, I was immediately like, "Oh, Unbreakable, I'm getting it." I've owned it on VHS, I've owned it on DVD, I've owned it on Blu-ray. If it comes out with a 4K or 890K, whatever, I'm going to keep buying it because it's one of my favorite movies of all time. So Unbreakable is phenomenal, and if you've never seen it, check it out. And I'll talk later why I think it's underrated, underappreciated, but I love everything about this movie. So
yes, and in case you don't know, like we said, we're just going to have to spoil the mess out of this for you. But in case you don't know, I mean, this is, again, like you said, this is M. Night's second movie. And, he's coming off the heels of Sixth Sense. And again, everyone's expecting this big twist and everything, which there was. There was a darn good twist in it. And but he's going in, great storytelling. And this is a story, it follows, and see, I'll get into some of this later, Gary, but it follows Bruce Willis, his character, David Dunn. It follows kind of his journey. You see, he has a rough patch with his family, and then Samuel Jackson. He is, he ends up getting in this. Well, it's not Samuel Jackson, but David Dunn ends up getting in this train accident. Comes out without a scratch. Everybody else is either severely injured or dead. I'm pretty sure everyone died, actually.
Everyone dies. Yep.
Yeah, everyone dies but him. And so now he's fascinated, and then you find out that, he's been following comic books, and he was saying there's, in all stories and human legends and myths, there's always a grain of truth. So he's trying to find the grain of truth in reality where maybe people do have some superhuman kind of strength or whatever it may be. And so that's pretty much what it is and what it follows. And again, I don't want to spoil the rest of it, but that's what it does. And for someone like, especially for me, I already love comic book stuff, and I love this different take on it, because by this time, I'm pretty sure we already had like X-Men, and I'm pretty sure we already had at least one, maybe not both Spider-Mans. Like, we had plenty of other stuff. But this was just a great take, and really focusing on the importance of comic books in, even in the world, as a realm of storytelling and just communicating things. So I just thought that part was really, really great. And that's what started this whole thing off. And it definitely ended where it's like, okay, we want a sequel. Like, we need a sequel.
They called me Mr. Glass. They called me Mr. Glass. Yeah.
And then after that, like I said, some 15 years later, Split comes out. However, Split...
Yes, it does.
Yes, Split was a complete surprise to everybody that it was a part of this universe. And here's the thing. Like, I'm just going to say my thing real quick, and then Gary's got to do a little rant. But here's the thing. Split comes out after M. Night had already kind of bombed quite a few movies. He bombed with The Last Airbender. He bombed with The Happening. He bombed with The Village. And people were just kind of like, okay, this guy has lost his touch. Maybe he did After Earth, which wasn't well received as well. For me, it was like, it was fine. But anyways, so there was a lot of movies he already made. People were like, So this movie comes out, and all the trailers show you is that James McAvoy is in it, and he has split personalities, and he's kidnapped some girls. That's all you get. So for me, I'm already like, okay, this is going to be a psychological thriller. I am in. So I go to the theater, I watch it, and here's where I just got to feel Gary's got to take over, because he's got to tell his story.
Yeah.
The movie is fantastic, but then the end. But go ahead, Gary.
Ladies and gentlemen, viewers, one of my biggest regrets in my movie life is the movie Split, and not in the. It is a great movie, but I don't do horror. I was in a time in my life where I was a little bit out of the loop on movies, so when I saw the trailer for Split, I just didn't really. I was like, okay, but it looked like a horror movie, so I was like, whatever, I'll see it whenever. And so I didn't make plans to see it, even though I also love psychological thrillers a little bit too much. Kind of make people uncomfortable how much I like those type of movies and shows. But so I just didn't even pay much attention. And I also love James McAvoy. But so I'll speed up a little bit. Met church one Sunday morning beforehand, out in the foyer, talking to some parents, some friends, some teens, and one of the youth group parents comes up to me. Robert was his name. Dear friend, from Wilkesboro, North Carolina, right up the road here. And he goes, hey, by the way, my daughter, she went to see that new movie Split the other night. I was like, oh, okay, cool. And he looked at me, he goes, did you know that's a sequel to Unbreakable? And I stopped in my tracks. I've already shared with you all how much I love Unbreakable.
Yes.
And I looked at him, like the countdown's going on, worship starting, and I looked at him and I said, what did you say? What did you say? He goes, yeah, at the end, it's a big surprise. It's a surprise sequel to Unbreakable. And I love Sunday morning worship. It's a big part of being a Christian. We're supposed to be there, fellowshipping, worshiping our Lord and Savior on Sunday mornings. I have no idea what we sang that Sunday. I have no idea what we preached about. All I sat there, it was like, I cannot believe this. I cannot believe this. I'm sitting there, I'm thinking, that is awesome for M. Night. Wow, what a surprise sequel. Are you kidding me? Too. I can't believe I missed this moment. I can't believe it. And so that's my story with Split. As much as I love Unbreakable, I did not have that moment in the theater where we realized, oh, wait a minute.
Yep.
So
and
it is what it is.
And that's what's crazy is how well of a job he did. I mean, he's always done good keeping the twist a secret, but how well of a job he did keeping that a secret. But not just that he kept it a secret almost its entire theatrical run. Like, you didn't see a whole lot of people just talking about it all the time, saying what it is. I'm pretty sure it made it probably almost the whole way. It was a secret for so long. And seriously, I think so many people were like, "Hey, have you seen Split?" No. Okay, well, go watch it, and then we need to talk. Like, I think people also had that respect about it. And but yeah, and that's what it is. It's like when you watch this movie, you watch it, you see the movie for what it is. Your mind is just on this specific self-contained movie, which was phenomenally shot and written, by the way. M. Night did phenomenal.
It's self-contained, it's well shot, etc.
I mean, yeah, etc. Yes. I mean, he only had there's only 4 people pretty much in most of the movie. So it was phenomenal. And then the end happens, and in the end, the movie comes to an end, but then it has this little, almost post-credit scene at the end. You start hearing the Unbreakable music, which for me, I was like, this sounds familiar. Wait, I know this song. Wait, is this Unbreakable? And then they talk about, oh, this sounds like that one guy, what would they call him? And then you see David Dunn, they called him Mr. Glass, and then Black. And it was just like, oh, the theater was just, oh, this is so amazing. I can't believe this is a part of it. And yes, Gary, I'm laying it on thick because I'm trying
I deserve it.
I'm trying to get my experience. Maybe it will help you. I don't know. I'm trying. And it just, and I remember, ladies and gentlemen, I remember going to Gary and being like, oh man, did you see Split? And then Gary, this is literally Gary. He just goes, I need to tell you a story about Split. Exactly what he did. And he didn't answer my question. He just completely downcast, sad face and told me the story you just heard.
Yeah. And at the end of the day, folks, I blame myself. I should have been more responsible. Should Robert have spoiled that? No, but I should have been more responsible. And
had the movie been out 3 weeks by that point, you said?
I don't remember. I don't know. It hadn't been out long, but anyway, I now own Split. It's sitting on my shelf right there next to the Unbreakable Blu-ray where it belongs, and watched it. Great movie, great ending.
That he didn't get to experience on his own. Poor guy.
It happens.
Yeah.
Live and learn.
Yeah, and like I said, we had to spoil that one. And then, of course, it follows up with Glass. Gary and I got to go see in the theater together. That came out. And I remember this movie, we first kind of walked out of it thinking that was good. I liked it, but there was something weird about it. And it wasn't until more conversations and a second viewing that we really got to dig into this. And there was something else, Gary, actually, that I thought about. I guess we'll get into in a second, but I thought about with this movie. But I personally thought it was a great closure to it, and closure to the trilogy. And once you realize what this trilogy actually was, 2 things. Gary, I've talked to you. I know I've talked to you about one of them, but 2 things. What this trilogy actually was, I think a lot of people missed, and because Glass, at this point they capture David Dunn, they capture the Horde, and now they're in a psych ward. And I'm trying to convince them they don't have super. And the movie just goes from there. And then, of course, the Glass isn't buying it at all. He's like, no, we're real. And then he ends up, you've seen the trailer, you kind of seen this, the bad guys are teaming up. And so David Dunn's got to stop them. And then it has the ending that most people did not like. But, and really, when I hear from everyone, the movie was great until the ending. So when it comes down to it, people didn't like it because of the ending.
Yeah, that's usually what I hear. It's usually what I hear about this movie is great to the ending. And this movie, this movie always had a special place in my heart because this was first off, I don't know if you remember this, but I don't know anybody from work's watching, but we skipped a work event to go see this because we had planned it before. We had the men's summit or something. They're like, "You guys going?" But we had already bought tickets, and I'm like, "I'm going to see Glass. I'm not missing Glass. I missed Split. I'm not missing Glass." So
because we had bought tickets before they planned that event is what happened, and then they planned the event, and we're like, "Sorry, we have plans."
Our wives got together with the kids. We met at my house. We went and saw this together, and then we went and ate pizza and talked about it. And then, honestly, I feel this movie might have been the first. What's the word? where the thought of us doing a YouTube show about movies happened
Yeah.
because the rest of that weekend, you and I were texting back and forth about this movie, things we realized, you know. And I remember that whole rest of the night, Megan's like, "Who you text?" Like, Efren. She's like, "About the movie?" It's like, "Yes." And she's like, "Holy cow, was it that good?" I was like, "I just realized, yes, it was that good." You know, but I think it was very well done. I had to. This movie is classic. People don't like it because they didn't get what they wanted.
Yes.
And it's not always about that. What was the director trying to tell? When you realize what M. Night was trying to tell with this movie and this whole trilogy, you walk away. I personally, I think you agree, walk away with a lot more appreciation. I guess the only complaint I would have with Glass, am I allowed to say spoil? We're spoiling, right?
Yeah, we've already spoiled the other
Yeah, we're spoiling. I guess before they all three came together, maybe I would, just me personally, I would have liked to have seen a third movie where is David Dunn being what was he called, the Night Watcher?
The
Overseer, yeah. Oh, I can't believe I forgot that. I would like to have seen maybe a movie with him doing that, and him and his, because I love that part with him and his son, same character, same actor working together, trying to find, James McAvoy. But it is what it is, and I know why it happened. I get it, but seeing one of my favorite movie characters of all time die by being drowned in a puddle of water is just. It's hard for me, but I understand why.
Yeah,
but
and I get that. And in further, study of said movie, here's the thing that I realized, Gary, is, well, I guess I have another answer to that question, because one thing that I realized in going back and looking at highlights, rereading the story and stuff of these movies, is one thing I realized is. And here's where we're really getting into the let us explain why this trilogy is so good. All right. So, and here's the one, Gary, I don't think I've told you yet, but if I have, I'm glad I did, but I can't remember. Is we look at this just the way you said. Here is this hero in David Dunn. Here is this guy. When the first movie, we followed his story, we followed his connection with Mr. Glass, and we're seeing, we're seeing this relationship. We're trying to figure out if he's a hero, if he's not, if he has superpowers, and so. Gary, I submit to you that we were fooled to think that movie and also this trilogy is about David Dunn. It's about the hero. And what I have realized is this trilogy, even Unbreakable, actually was never about David Dunn. This movie was actually about Mr. Glass. And the reason why I realize this is when you look at Split, obviously David Dunn's not in it to the end. You see Split. And this is about, the Horde. This whole trilogy is about the villains. And we didn't realize that because we thought, well, this is part of this. Well, David Dunn's got to have this big fight. He's got to, it's got to be normally what we expect. It's got to be this hero that overcomes all odds and saves the world, if you will, or at least saves this town, right? And we think that's what it is, but it was never about him. It was about Glass and his story, especially when you see the end of Glass. And see how it also connects to Split, and how the same train is again, we're spoiling everything, all right? So how the same train killed his father, which then had the abuse from the mother, which then gave him the multiple personalities to protect him from abuse, to protect Kevin, Kevin Crumb, so to protect him from it. So this whole story, the whole time, is about Mr. Glass. It's about the villain coming to power and the villain getting his message across that heroes and villains exist. And that was the whole point. That was, even from Unbreakable, it was never about David Dunn. It was about him as the villain, the mastermind, getting his message out to the world. And ultimately, he did. Yeah. Ultimately, he did. The villain won, which is part of the reason why we don't like it. Part of the reason why people don't like it when the villain wins. Yeah, no, they're not used to that, and they do not like that. And it's why does a villain have to win? But it did. And then what you end up seeing as well, and I know we talked about this, is that, this is kind of like the prequel to superhero movies in general, if you will. This is what happens before superheroes become a thing. And so
self-aware and realize at the end it's okay to be, like this or have these abilities.
Yes.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. I mean, the one line in Glass that makes me agree with that whole statement is what his mom says. He says, they always underestimate the mastermind.
Mm-hmm.
And we as the viewers did the exact same thing.
Yep.
Because even the end of Split, there's Mr. Glass. He's there. He is orchestrating the entire thing. And one thing we haven't really talked about too much is I personally feel these two movies are Samuel L. Jackson's best movies, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people will say Pulp Fiction and other stuff. I disagree. I think he does his best work in Glass and Unbreakable.
Mm-hmm.
It's just, but you're right. And the whole thing with let me ask you this about the Glass.
Yeah.
About halfway through, when Sarah Paulson's character, who also she is very underrated. She's an amazing actress. Great in this movie. There was a few moments where she started to convince me maybe that it was all kind of in their heads. Like maybe he's not unbreakable. Maybe they're all just insane. And then you realize, it's just a massive cover up, And then that scene where a lot of people don't like the whole underground. I don't know how to talk today. A lot of people didn't like that, but I thought that was brilliant.
The conspiracy underground movement that they already know these heroes exist. And these type of people, but they're trying to keep it under wraps, which honestly makes sense. But then again, still brings up once again, it's about the villains. And guess what? You're living in a world where the villains are winning.
Mm-hmm.
And so,
absolutely, yeah.
But then Mr. Glass already knew about their existence. That's what people miss too. Glass knew about these people's existence, and he was doing everything he can to override them, to show the world the truth that they exist. And so that's the other part I think people miss is you don't realize that's how smart this kid is, or this kid. I went back to Unbreakable, him as a kid. How smart this guy is. He knew these people existed. That's why he did what he did, because he knew that's the only way he could beat them.
Yep.
And it just
with his mind. Yep. And wow, I'm gonna have to watch. I'm gonna have to rewatch the entire trilogy because it's just getting me excited because I just love how it all comes to be.
Yes, and and that's the thing is when you see when you go back, I'm sure now I'm the same way. I'm now I need to go back and watch all three to see what else I missed. But when you go back, I mean, yes, you basically have these three main characters split up, no pun intended, but split up through these three movies, but all telling very different specific stories, but all under the umbrella of telling the story of Mr. Glass.
Yeah.
And to think that this whole thing started, because again, if you don't know, Mr. Glass, he was born with brittle bones. I forget the name of the actual disease, but essentially any decent
glassitis
thing, glassitis, sure, but anything like that, his bones will break, and so he's afraid to leave his house. So his mom gets him to leave his house by putting a present out on the park, and he had to go outside, go to the park, and when he opens it up, there's the first comic book that he had ever owned, and that's what starts this love and fascination with the whole thing. But probably because of his condition, obviously there's a lot of studying. This man is highly intelligent, and he just develops his mind over all these years. And then, of course, like you said, he comes to that conclusion of there's got to be, like the end of Unbreakable, there's always an equal and opposite to everything in all these comic books. If there's a man with super strength, well, then, like in his case, there's man with next to no strength. So if he's Mr. Glass, there's got to be someone who's unbreakable.
Yep.
That's the name of the movie. And then his last line, Gary, I always loved it. He said, I should have known. I should have known because of the kids. The kids always told me I should have known I was a villain. They called me Mr. Glass.
They called me Mr. Glass. Yep. Love it. I remember, oh man.
And then the fact that movie ended with that, like that right there, after seeing Split and going in the Glass, I should have already been like, this is what this trilogy is about. It's about Mr. Glass. Because even that one ended with his name being the last words of that movie.
Yep, they called me Mr. Glass, And every time, so I'm a very clumsy person. I fall a lot. I've fallen down my stairs many times.
Yes.
And every time I do, they call me Mr. Glass. every time, that's so. Yeah, I'm constantly, and you think about it, I love to quote movies. The person I quote from these movies the most is him. You
Yep.
know, when my kids do something I don't like, no, 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 no. Like at the very beginning when he's telling the guy, "You're not buying this for an infant named Jeb."
Yeah.
You see a purple dinosaur around here? I just love that.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, and then and while we're talking, I just want to say, because we're talking about these movies, the man in the middle there, James McAvoy, the performances he does in these in Split and Glass are completely underappreciated. I mean, holy cow! I mean, people don't like Glass, fine, but no one can say he is not absolutely spectacular in that
Yes.
movie. Both of them. I mean, just he's one of the most underappreciated actors working today, in my opinion. I think he is. He's so good at what he does.
He is one that I always go back and forth, and I think maybe if I see one more movie with him, I will put him in the same tier as the Tom Hanks and Robin Williams, in my opinion. Because, like I said about those two actors, they can be villains, they can be comedic, they can be serious, they can do it all. And James McAvoy in Split alone showed us that he can do it all. I mean, he did manipulative, he did a kid, he did, he did a monster, he did the villain. Like he did all that, and then of course with his other
an old lady.
Yeah, I mean, just exactly what he did in those movies was just absolutely phenomenal. I mean, he carried Split. The other girls in the movie were fine, for what they were, but like he carried that entire movie, and that's why that movie was so phenomenal on its own. Not even a part of this trilogy. On its own, it was just absolutely another masterpiece, in my opinion, from M. Night.
So good. And we can say what you want about M. Night, is he had some misses in his career, absolutely. But I will opt for Sixth Sense, Signs, and this trilogy. He'll always have my appreciation. And it's these movies that we just said that every time he's coming out with a movie, it sparks my interest because there's a chance it's going to be awesome. It's a chance it's going to be complete trash too. Don't get me wrong, but
yes,
no disrespect, but there's that. Holy cow, it might be awesome. So he's a name. We all have those Nolans and Spielbergs. Those names we hear they're making movies are piques our attention, and he's up there. When he's making a movie, he has our attention.
Yes, people will show up to the theater just because his name's on it. Because the way he writes and everything, he's always trying to hit you with the mind, be psychological with things. He's trying to throw you off base, a lot of smoke and mirrors kind of tactics to really get you. And I mean, just like Split, I mean, even if it wasn't tied in, Split was a phenomenal movie. And but the fact that he did this and then he said, hey, this is tied in. Then you go back and watch Split and you're like, oh my goodness, he had superhuman strength. He got shot and nothing happened. Like, absolutely, this is in that universe. Like, it just blow your mind. And so that was really the twist. Like, nothing really with him. It was a twist that, hey, it's in this universe. And now you're just like, oh my goodness. And that's what you always expect, which is why when he had his flops like Lady in the Water, The Village, which we both said we need to rewatch because that might end up being a let us explain later. But we need to rewatch that one. But Lady in the Water, The Happening, The Last Airbender were just Airbender. No, I'm not even going to count it because he did that for his kids, and he wasn't trying to be M. Night with that movie. But with the other, go ahead.
Well, M. Night his hero is Alfred Hitchcock. He is a student of Alfred Hitchcock. Alfred Hitchcock was the king of misdirection. You watch a movie Psycho, you think you're watching one thing, and then 30 minutes in, you're watching something you didn't even think. It's brilliant. That is he Hitchcock, but he is cut from the same cloth. Like that's why he's in his movies. He has cameos, and he is great at that misdirection, just like Hitchcock was. And it's just cool to see that type of filmmaking continued in our generation.
Yeah.
If that makes sense. I don't know. That might not make sense.
Absolutely. It does make sense. And so, and that's the thing with this trilogy is and that's what people remember is what you said at the beginning, Gary. First of all, you got to realize what this director trying to do what is the story he is trying to tell? I mean, it's a lot like with anything in life. What's the context? What is the meaning behind it? You can't just, formulate your opinion. So many people dislike this trilogy, especially Glass. Let's just put it that way. They dislike the whole trilogy because of Glass, and they dislike Glass because they didn't get what they wanted. And that's the thing is, which also makes it great and brilliant, is M. Night wasn't afraid to say, I'm going to tell the story that I want to tell, and here is the story. And he's already had it planned. He had it thought through years ago, but he just hadn't got around to it, I guess, because he had other projects he wanted to do, or maybe studios try to force him. I'm not quite sure. But he had the story he wanted to tell. He already knew it. And because that story wasn't what made us feel good, or that story wasn't what we wanted, then people dismiss it. And it's like, no, you got to dig in like we have today and realize what he was trying to say, what the story was actually about. When you look at it from the standpoint of, this was about the villains, specifically Mr. Glass. This was his trilogy, his story. And this was, a precursor to superhero movies, if you will, and superheroes becoming the light in the world. Then you can appreciate it a whole lot more. But if you come into it like, okay, I want David Dunn to be the hero, and you just want a typical superhero movie, you're not going to be happy with it. And you can't look at it that way, because that's not the story M. Night wanted to tell.
Yep. And it's exactly right. We have to, if a director makes a movie that just isn't good and it doesn't make sense, that's fine. That's one thing. But when you see a story laid out like this, take some time to understand the director's, the writer's vision. And, if you don't like it, you don't like it. That's fine. But, don't not like it because you didn't get what you wanted. I mean, life doesn't work that way.
Yeah, exactly. If you understand all that and you watch them and you're still like, it just wasn't for me, that's fine. That is totally fine. But like you said, don't just do it because I didn't get my baba. Like, come on.
Yeah. And then give a David Dunn versus the Horde. I needed him on a bill. It's like, well, okay, there are 50 movies you can get. There are 20 Marvel movies right now that are amazing. Go watch those. It's not what this is. Not what this is.
Not what this is at all. This is, if anything, it's antithesis? Is that the right word? I don't know. Either way, it's the opposite end.
Antithesis.
Yeah, there you go. Sure. Just showing our smarts right now.
Right.
Yeah. But so that is what, ladies and gentlemen, we submit to you. On why Oh, yes.
Sorry, I didn't mean to throw that on you real quick.
Oh, no, but I'm fine. I'll finish this. That's what we submit to you as the Unbreakable Trilogy, being way better and it needs more respect and needs more views and needs to be talked about more, because of all those things we just talked about. There's just so much here to love about this trilogy and about these movies, and it's definitely worth the watch. And go and check them out. I'm sure you can find them on Amazon Prime. I know I've seen them on there. I think Netflix had them for a while. I don't know if they still do. I'm sure you can find them on streaming somewhere in some platform that you're paying for of the 20 that you are. And
buy them on Blu-ray.
Yeah.
Go all in.
Yeah, listen. Go on Amazon. They sell the trilogy Blu-ray. I think it's $20 for all 3 movies.
You know how cool it would have been? I think we talked about this. Wouldn't it have been cool if Glass came in like a glass book, like an actual glass? Oh, yeah. That'd be cool.
Maybe like a plexiglass, though, so we don't break it. But yeah. Yes, it would have been awesome. So yes, that's what we had. That is our first Let Me Explain. And before we close it out, Gary's announcement.
Yes, I have a quick announcement. I am going to be having a new office. I am one of our guest room at the house is going to be moved to a guest room / my room to do whatever I want to do in it. The wife has signed off on it. I don't know when it'll be done. However, I will be recording in there when it is done. This show will be doing in there. And so that means I need new movie posters. Yes, you heard me right. Need from my background. And I've decided the first poster I will buy for the new office is Unbreakable. So I thought today was the perfect time to make that announcement. So my first purchase first poster purchase for the new office will be Unbreakable.
Nice.
So, yes.
Well done. Well done. We are excited for you, Gary, to have a new place so you don't get interrupted at the office. We all know how annoying that can be. And so glad to hear that. And we hope you guys enjoyed this. If you did, give us a thumbs up, hit that like button. Again, it pleases the YouTube gods, and it makes sure that you continue to see our content when we go live or when we post it, whichever one. and make sure to hit that subscribe. And we hope you enjoyed our very first Let Us Explain. And don't you worry, we already have plans for quite a few more. And, and then also be on the lookout for our Fix It, Real Pastors Fix. We will have that coming as well. And just everything, new content coming. Just look for us on Fridays at this time. We will be posting our live show, and then we'll post reviews and other things up throughout the week as they come up. And that's all I have. Gary, you have anything else you want to say to the folks?
Nope, you covered it all. Subscribe, comment, alert. Be on this journey with us.
Perfect. We'll see you guys later.